Hey guys, today you want to talk about friendship. I'm not exactly too sure the direction of this video, but I definitely had friendship or having a support network as something that was really important. And originally I was thinking about it in the context of what happens if you lose your job and you get outsourced by AI. Like my thinking was, at least you need to have friends so that you can brainstorm together, you can share your grievances, you have more access to opportunities, and then you can strategize together to figure out what to do next. Like I was thinking, if you had a situation like that, then it's much more easier to navigate through difficult circumstances, especially if you're comparing it with somebody who, okay, so something bad happens, say like you lose your job, then you sit at home and then you feel depressed, and then what? You don't really have that kind of network that by default supports you. It's like a lot more effort and there's a lot more initiative and momentum that you would need to get yourself back in the grind, back on your feet if something happens. At least that's what I'm imagining. Maybe some people, they get hit hard and they can fully be independent and sort everything out on their own. Yeah, when I'm facing a challenging situation or I'm in a difficult time, I'm the type of person who just reaches out to my friends and I either share my problem or I share my challenge. And I think a lot of the benefit comes from the act of sharing. Like sometimes when we think things to ourselves or we have these ideas in our mind, at least for me, as soon as I externalize them or I share them with someone, it gives me more clarity on whether that was a good idea or whether it's not so sensible. Like sometimes as soon as it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, yeah, that's a really good idea, that's really good. Or as soon as it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, wait, that just sounds stupid as soon as I told you. And I wouldn't have had that extra layer of feedback if I keep those ideas to myself. So yeah, that's one thing. That's not even counting their feedback yet. Often when we have good friends, good supportive friends in a network, when we share something with somebody, they're gonna counter with their perspective, which adds another layer of sort of safety because they might have interesting perspectives where maybe it invalidates what you said or gives you more food for thought and unlocks different type of thought patterns and thinking. And I find this very helpful, especially when I'm able to share the same problem or share the same experiences with different people. Sometimes I feel like hearing different perspectives really helps. That's the way I approach things, at least. I feel like that's the way I've always approached things. But then I know other people where they resolve things on their own. Maybe their thinking is more clear from the get-go. They seem to resolve their thoughts and clarify their thinking and arrive at sensible conclusions on their own. However, I'm the type of guy who I just brainstorm. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and maybe it doesn't have that much thought to it, but it ends up getting processed and filtered and synthesized as I think, as I verbalize it, and as I discuss it, and I brainstorm of people who I seek advice of, or who are wiser than me, kind of thing, or who have more experience than me, right? But part of the value with having a diverse set of opinions is that maybe if I have a work problem and I ask everybody at my workplace, they give a certain type of opinion, or their opinion is coming from like a work perspective. But when I ask somebody who is retired or somebody who's currently unemployed and they have that kind of perspective, that's what I mean by unlocking different type of perspectives. That's where like different types of thinking can be unlocked, because often when we're in a certain situation, we're conditioned to think in a certain way, I think. So part of the idea of this video was that it's a bad idea to decide to be a lone wolf, to resolve to do everything on your own, just because I think it's so limiting, right? And it's perhaps unreasonable or unrealistic to think that we have all the solutions in our mind and that there's no value from being interdependent with other people. There's an idea from the Stephen Covey book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the ideas he had was, first, people start off as dependent, right? And then they need to make the shift from being dependent to independent. But then there's a level above that, which is interdependent, which is where they've grown out or they become mature enough to not be fully dependent on others, which means they're not that reactive or not that attached, and they're able to do things on their own, and they're psychologically resilient to other people's opinions, etc. But then after that, he says the next level is going back and integrating with others. And I find that to be pretty wise. I definitely think after you become independent, it's actually a challenge to be able to work with others and work as a team, especially after we're used to doing things on our own. But then at the end of the day, when we have a team, what we can achieve together is much, much bigger than if we were all acting as individual units. It requires a high level of maturity and equanimity and emotional self-awareness to be able to function effectively in a team. The idea was, don't be a lone wolf. It is so much better to surround yourself with a good group of people. And there's that quote where it's like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that's pretty deep as well. There's no doubt that our environment influences us so much, and the people that are in our environment have such an impact on our thinking, our habits, and our trajectory. So I think it's good if we can have people around us that they're on the path that we want to go, or maybe they're a few steps ahead of us, or there's something aspirational. There's an aspirational aspect, right? Because then we're more likely to achieve it ourselves. I'm not saying that we should only hang around people who we want to become like and who are more successful than us, kind of thing, because I feel perhaps that's a bit needy or a bit transactional, but I'm just saying, if we could seek out mentors, I think it's a good thing. And if we could have friends around us or a community where it's interdependent, where we're all supporting each other, then it's such a big advantage. One, it makes life much more meaningful, but if we're talking about the hard times, then it makes the hard times much, much easier. So I think it's important to invest in relationships and perhaps really prioritize it, because at the end of the day, people and relationships are much more important than status and career success. If we do get successful, then I feel like it's much more aspirational to be able to share that success with the people around us rather than just being that lone wolf. For some people, perhaps they naturally have good friends around them. For some people, they don't have many friends. In other cases, people have people around them that are bad influence, that aren't necessarily influencing them in the right way. But I guess my point is that maybe there's an ideal to work towards. It's not like having the most friends in the world kind of thing, but it's having a solid support network that is interdependent, where the community is supporting each other and willing to help out, brainstorm, give ideas, share perspectives, and not foster any kind of dependency, but like a mutual empowerment, so that each person is independent in their own right, but in an interdependent network, there's a synergy and we're able to thrive. So anyway, that was my rant about friendship for the day. Originally, I was thinking about it in terms of AI survival strategies. What happens if, even if you tried your hardest, you lost your job and you found yourself jobless for a while? What are you going to do? And not even talking about losing jobs, but then just over the years, most of the job opportunities I've gotten have just been through straight referrals, or at least having friends recommend me a job interview. And a few jobs I've gotten by myself, but I just feel like it's made things so much easier. So if you're lacking in the social aspect or you're lacking in the community aspect, I guess I would start figuring out how to take steps towards a future where that is a strength rather than something that's lacking. And it can be with people online, though it does feel much more powerful, everything else held constant, if the relationship was in person. Though these days I feel like those top 5 people who impact us the most, they could be people online as well as people in our physical proximity. All I can say is I reckon a lot of the things I have in my life, or the progress or the easiness of my life, has a lot to do with my relationships and the people around me. That's a strength, but anyway, that's just some food for thought.